Do you like it? We needed a breakfast nook for two reasons. One was for seating and the other was for storage. I drew up a quick design and kept it as simple as I could. I basically wanted two large boxes with flip-top benches to hold as much as possible. And I added on some molding to make it kind of match our shaker style cabinets. The first thing I did was visit the home center and pick up the MDF for the box. I had them cut it in the store to the width I needed because it's easier for them to use the panel saw than for me to try and do it with the table saw at home. The smaller pieces I cut to length on my table saw. MDF kicks up a lot of dust, so make sure to wear a mask when cutting it. I assembled the box using screws specifically designed for use with MDF. They self-drill and countersink. The only thing you have to do is go over the hole it makes with a razor blade to make it flush. Once the larger box was done, I switched over to cutting to length the pieces for the smaller one. For the tops, I was thinking I would glue up some 3/4 inch boards to make a larger one, but actually we'll get to that later. After I moved some pallet wood out of the way my father-in-law had gotten for me, I started on the 1x3 moldings for the front and sides. This was before I got my brad nailer, so I just glued on the boards and tacked them with some finishing nails. It's not the best method. So with the tops, I realized I didn't have a good way to flatten the boards I had just glued up, and I thought they might warp or be a little unstable once I painted them, so I ended up not using them at all. The downside to using glue and nails is having to fill the holes with wood filler. In hindsight, I should have just used clamps. I had enough of them. Once that dried, I'd sanded each hole to give it a nice paintable finish. It was a lot of sanding. Next up was painting. MDF reacts poorly if you put a water-based paint on it. We wanted to use the same paint as our cabinets, which was a water-based paint. So I had to first put on an oil-based primer coat, then I could put the water-based paint on top of it. I went with Zinsser Cover Stain Primer, and it went on nicely. Now getting back to these tops. I wanted something stable for the top, so I picked up some nicer plywood, not walnut or bamboo nice, but not OSB. It was basically paintable. Once I cut the larger bench tops into two smaller doors, I broke out the table saw and cut where I wanted the hinges to be. That was creating a little too much dust, so I cut a hole in the bottom of the table and hooked my dust collector up to it. Ah, that's much better. Then attach those back pieces to the boxes. Then wood fillered the holes left by the screws and cleaned up the shop a little bit. Next, I got 50 feet of air hose from Harbor Freight that I would be using to spray the paint on the benches. This took some doing because the studs were nowhere near where I thought they were, which forced me to move the mounting holes on the piece of wood, but we finally got it installed. Now I just had to figure out how this sprayer thing worked. The next day was paint day. I started by sanding down the wood filler, then I had to clear a spot to paint these things. Once I got them in place and figured out how the sprayer worked, I got started. I'm a huge fan of this way of painting. The coverage goes on nice and even, it's fast, it dries quickly as long as you don't saturate it. By the way, I have to talk about this paint that we use for our cabinets. It's Benjamin Moore Advanced Interior Paint. I am not sponsored by them. We bought this paint and used it in our kitchen, and it was fantastic. We love the way it looks, we love how durable it is. The only thing you have to keep in mind is it takes a while to dry if you're not spraying it. At least that was our experience. After 3 coats with light sanding in between, the boxes were all done. I removed the tape lines we had put down to see where we wanted the nook to be. Brooke vacuumed the location, and we moved our temporary plywood island out of the way. And here comes our new Nook. Small one first, and the larger one needed some help. That MDF is heavy. The last thing I did was put in the hinges. We found these hinges at Woodcraft and just liked the way they looked. We only used 2 per top, but I also added a piece of steel underneath so that the top would lean on that rather than just the hinges. Thank you so much for watching this video. We finally have a place where we can eat our meals, and we've got some decent storage now, which is very helpful. Do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Yeah.